My older sister grabbed my wrist just before the photographer called us over. Her smile stayed perfect, but her voice dropped low. "Step aside," she said. "You're not in the photos." I thought she was joking. I laughed once, then stopped when she didn't. "It's my wedding," she added. "I want it clean." I asked what that meant. She looked me up and down like I had embarrassed her just by existing. Then she pointed toward the hallway near the bathrooms. "Just wait there." The camera clicked. My parents moved into place. My sister lifted her chin. No one noticed me disappear. I stood in the hallway, holding my clutch, watching strangers walk past while my family smiled without me. The photographer kept calling for more shots. Each flash felt like a slap. I didn't cry. I couldn't. My body felt numb. A few minutes later, I heard my sister laugh and say, "Good, now it looks right." That was when I knew this wasn't stress. It was a choice. I left the wedding early. I didn't say goodbye. I drove home in silence, my dress untouched, my chest aching, realizing that something between us had been broken on purpose, and no one had tried to stop it. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the hallway. I heard the camera. I felt myself shrinking. The next morning, photos flooded social media, smiling faces, perfect lighting, my sister glowing at the center. I wasn't in a single one. Relatives commented about how beautiful everything looked. Friends shared the album. No one asked where I was. Later that day, my sister sent a short message. "Weddings are stressful, hope you understand." That was it. No apology, no explanation. I stared at the screen until it went dark. Weeks passed, then months. Family calls slowed down, invitations stopped. When I did hear from anyone, they acted like nothing happened. I learned how easy it is to erase someone if you stay quiet long enough. I stopped reaching out. I moved to another city. I focused on work. I built a routine that didn't include them. From the outside, I looked fine. Inside, something stayed tight. I avoided mirrors and formal clothes. I skipped big gatherings. I told myself it didn't matter. But it did. That hallway followed me for years, reminding me how small I felt when no one chose me. And how quickly love can turn conditional when appearances matter more than people. Years went by, and my life filled up. I became good at my work. People trusted me. I earned promotions and respect without asking for it. I learned how to stand straight again. I rarely spoke about my family. It was easier that way. Then one afternoon, a message appeared on my phone. It was from my sister. My heart dropped before I even opened it. She wrote, "Can we talk? I've been thinking about you." I didn't answer right away. We met a week later at a quiet cafe. She hugged me like no time had passed. She talked about her life, her kids, her stress. She never mentioned the wedding. I listened. I waited. Finally, she smiled and said, "I heard you're doing really well." That was the moment everything clicked. She didn't miss me. She needed me. I asked what she wanted. She hesitated, then said she needed help with something important. Something public. Something only I could fix. I felt calm in a way I hadn't expected. I told her I'd think about it. As I walked away, I realized the power had shifted. She was the one waiting now. But power wasn't what I wanted. I wanted the truth she had avoided for years, and before I gave her anything, I needed her to finally face the moment she pushed me out of her life and smiled for the camera without me. She didn't like waiting. She called twice before I agreed to meet again. This time I was clear. If she wanted my help, we had to talk about the past. Her smile faded. "Do we really need to bring that up?" she asked. Yes, we did. I described the wedding slowly, the hallway, the photos, the silence afterward. I didn't raise my voice, I didn't accuse, I just told the truth. She looked uncomfortable, then defensive, then quiet. "I didn't think it hurt you that much," she said. That sentence hurt more than the memory. I told her I wouldn't help unless she admitted what she did to our parents. Out loud. No excuses. She said that would be embarrassing. I said so was standing alone at her wedding. She asked for time. I gave her 1 week. When I left, my hands were shaking, but my back was straight. For the first time, I wasn't asking for space. I was setting it. Whatever happened next would decide everything. Either she would face the truth and grow, or she would walk away again. This time, I was ready for both outcomes, because I had already survived being erased once. She called on the 7th day. Her voice sounded smaller. She said she told our parents everything. She said they were shocked. She said it was hard. I listened without interrupting. I asked if she took responsibility. She said yes. That mattered. I agreed to help her, but only as a professional. Written rules, clear limits, no family favors. She hesitated, then agreed. We met to discuss the work. She followed my lead. She didn't interrupt. That was new. When we finished, she asked quietly, "Does this mean we're okay?" I told her trust takes time. She nodded. Later that night, my parents asked to meet. I felt the old ache return, but it didn't control me anymore. I knew what I deserved now. As I stood by my window, city lights glowing below, I realized something important. Being banned from those photos had hurt me deeply. But it also forced me to build a life that didn't depend on anyone else's approval. Whatever happened next with my sister, I would not shrink again. I had learned the difference between peace and silence, and I chose peace. Meeting my parents again felt strange. Their house looked the same, but I didn't feel like the same person walking through the door. We sat at the table where we used to eat together every week. My mother spoke first. She said she was sorry. She said she should have stepped in at the wedding. My father admitted he knew about the photos but stayed quiet to avoid conflict. That hurt more than I expected. I told them how alone I felt that day. I explained how their silence taught me not to depend on them. My voice shook, but I didn't stop. My sister sat across from me, eyes down. She didn't interrupt. When she finally spoke, she said she was wrong. She said she wanted everything perfect and didn't care who got hurt. Hearing that truth felt heavy, but it felt real. We didn't hug, we didn't fix anything. We agreed to move slowly. When I left, I felt tired but lighter. The truth was finally in the open. Later that night, work messages filled my phone. The project had strict deadlines. Helping my sister would test every boundary I set. As I turned off the light, I understood something clearly. This wasn't just about photos. It was about whether I would ever let myself disappear again for someone else's comfort. Work became my shield. I focused on the project my sister needed help with. It was risky and very public. Any mistake would follow us both. I treated it like any other job, setting rules and writing everything down. She followed them, even when it was hard. We spoke often, but only about work. No family talk, no emotions. That distance felt safe. One afternoon, she asked if I could rush part of the process. I said no. She looked frustrated but didn't push. That moment mattered. At home, memories of the wedding came back, but they didn't sting the same way. I was no longer stuck in that hallway. I was moving forward. As the project gained attention, people noticed my work. They spoke to me directly, not as her sister but as myself. That felt new. One evening she thanked me, not in a dramatic way, just a quiet thank you. I accepted it, but I stayed careful. Change can feel real in the moment and fade later. I reminded myself why I set boundaries. Respect should not disappear when pressure lifts. Helping her did not mean forgetting the past. It meant choosing how much space she had in my present. For the first time, I felt in control without being cruel. And that balance felt powerful. As the project reached a critical stage, pressure rose fast. My sister became anxious. She called more often. She wanted reassurance. I stayed calm and focused on facts. Emotions couldn't lead this. One morning she suggested we present the work together, like a united family success story. My chest tightened. I told her no. I explained that my work would stand on its own. She looked hurt, then quiet. She didn't argue. I thought we were healing, she said. We are, I replied. But healing doesn't erase the past. She nodded slowly. The presentation went well. Questions came my way. I answered confidently. I didn't look to her for approval. Afterward, she tried to give me public credit. I thanked her but corrected the details where needed. I wouldn't let the story change again. That night, she called and cried. She said she finally understood how small she made me feel. I listened. I didn't rush to comfort her. Growth needs space. When the call ended, I felt calm, not proud, calm. The favor was almost done. What remained was deciding what kind of relationship we would have once she no longer needed me. That answer mattered more than success ever could. When the project ended, my sister asked to meet again. This time, there was no request hiding behind her words. She said she was afraid I would disappear again. I told her I might if old patterns returned. That was the truth. We talked longer than before, about childhood, about control, about fear. She admitted she always needed to be first. I admitted I learned to stay small to survive. Nothing was solved in one conversation. but something shifted. My parents reached out later that week. They thanked me for speaking up. I accepted carefully. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. At work, new opportunities opened. I stepped into them without doubt. One evening, I found an old photo from the wedding. I had taken it before everything went wrong. I looked hopeful in it. This time I smiled. Life kept moving, slowly, steadily. The favor was finished, the balance was clear. I wasn't asking for space anymore, I was choosing it. Whatever came next with my sister would be built on respect or not at all. That knowledge felt like freedom. Time passed and things settled. My sister and I spoke now and then. Not often, not forced, honest. She respected my limits. When she didn't, I reminded her calmly. She listened. That was new. At work, I grew into my role. I trusted my voice. I stopped waiting for permission. One day, my sister sent me a photo. It was from her wedding album. A blank page where my photo should have been. She wrote, "I see it now." I didn't reply right away. Later, I told her growth isn't about fixing the past, it's about choosing better next time. She understood. I realized the favor she asked for wasn't the turning point. The turning point was when I stopped staying silent. Being banned from those photos hurt deeply, but it also forced me to build strength without approval. I no longer measured my worth by who included me. I measured it by how I treated myself. As I looked toward the future, I felt steady. The past no longer owned me. The story didn't end with applause or drama, it ended with something quieter. Self-respect. And that was more than enough. Life felt quieter after everything settled. Not empty, just calm. I returned to my routines and focused on myself. Work stayed busy, but it no longer felt like an escape. It felt like growth. My sister and I didn't talk much. When we did, it was respectful. No guilt, no pressure. That space helped me breathe. One afternoon, my parents invited us both to dinner. I hesitated, then agreed. I wanted to see if things had truly changed. The dinner was calm but serious. No one joked too quickly. My sister surprised me by speaking first. She said she wanted to acknowledge what she did again. Not to reopen wounds, but to own it fully. She said banning me from the photos came from fear and control. She said she wanted to look perfect, even if it meant hurting me. Hearing it out loud in front of our parents mattered. They apologized too. Not excuses, just regret. I didn't rush to forgive. I didn't need to. I listened. When I left that night, I felt lighter. Not because everything was fixed, but because the truth was no longer hidden. I realized healing isn't dramatic. It's slow, uncomfortable, and honest. And for the first time, I felt like I wasn't carrying this alone anymore. Months passed, and life continued forward. At work, I was trusted with bigger responsibilities. I handled them well. Confidence followed naturally when fear no longer led my choices. My sister reached out again with something unexpected. She asked if I would be part of a small family photo session for an anniversary celebration. She made it clear there was no pressure. I asked her one question. Do you want me there, or do you want things to look right? She didn't hesitate. I want you there. That mattered. The day came, and I stood where I wanted. No one moved me. No one questioned it. The camera clicked, and this time I didn't feel small. Later, when I saw the photos, I didn't search for myself first. I just looked at the whole picture. I was included, but more importantly, I felt included. That night, I realized something had changed inside me too. I no longer needed proof to feel whole. The past still existed, but it didn't control the present. I had learned how to stay without shrinking, speak without fear, and choose myself without guilt. That lesson stayed with me long after the photos were put away. Our relationship stayed careful, but it was real. We didn't pretend the past never happened. We talked when things felt off. We paused when emotions rose. That honesty built trust slowly. One evening, my sister admitted she had always compared herself to me. She said she feared being replaced or overlooked. I listened quietly. I told her I spent years trying not to take up space, thinking that would keep peace. Saying it out loud felt freeing. We weren't the same people anymore, and that was okay. My parents changed too. They checked in more. They asked instead of assuming. They listened instead of smoothing things over. I noticed I stopped replaying the wedding in my head. The hallway faded. The pain softened. New memories took its place. One day, my sister gave me a framed photo from the anniversary shoot. On the back, she wrote, "Thank you for staying." I kept it, not because I needed the words, but because they showed growth. The favor she once asked for no longer mattered. What mattered was respect. I learned reconciliation doesn't mean going back to how things were. It means moving forward with honesty and boundaries. And that choice belongs to both people, not just one. Not everything stayed perfect. Old habits tried to return sometimes. My sister would push, I would pull back. But now we noticed it. We talked. That made all the difference. At work, I stepped into a leadership role. I spoke clearly. I trusted my judgment. I no longer feared being seen. During a family gathering, someone joked about the wedding. The room went quiet. I spoke calmly and said it hurt, but growth mattered more than pretending. No one laughed. My sister nodded and backed me up. No excuses, just truth. That moment felt like closure. Later that night, I thought about how far I'd come. I didn't need an apology anymore. I accepted it because it was real, not because I needed peace. The power had shifted long before. It shifted when I stopped accepting silence as love. I learned that boundaries are not punishment. They are protection. I no longer defined myself by who excluded me. I defined myself by my values. When I looked back at the wedding day, I didn't feel weak. I felt proud of the person who survived it, learned from it, and chose to grow without bitterness. That strength followed me into every relationship after. Years after the wedding, the memory no longer hurt the same way. It became a lesson instead of a wound. My sister and I shared holidays now, not perfectly, but honestly, we respected limits. That mattered more than closeness. One day she told me she kept the original wedding album hidden. She said it reminded her of who she never wanted to be again. I told her growth is choosing differently when given another chance. At work, I mentored younger coworkers. I encouraged them to speak up early. I never told my story unless it helped them. I realized the favor my sister asked for wasn't the turning point. The turning point was when I refused to stay silent. Being banned from those photos hurt deeply, but it also forced me to build a life that didn't depend on approval. I learned inclusion is not begged for, it is earned through respect. Now when I look at family photos, I see effort, not perfection. The wedding day tried to erase me. Instead, it showed me my worth. Years later, my sister asked for a favor. What she gave in return was harder. She faced the truth, and I walked forward without carrying the weight anymore. Life kept moving, and I moved with it. I no longer felt pulled backward by old memories. When thoughts of the wedding came up, they felt distant, like a story I once lived but no longer carried. My sister and I found a rhythm. We didn't talk every week. We didn't pretend to be best friends. We respected space, and that respect made everything calmer. One afternoon, I noticed something new. When decisions came up in the family, my opinion was asked first. Not last. Not quietly. First. That shift mattered. At work, I led a small team. I spoke with confidence and listened carefully. I didn't shrink to make others comfortable anymore. One day, a junior coworker came to me upset after being ignored in a meeting. I recognized the look on her face. I told her to speak again, clearly and firmly. She did. She was heard. I smiled to myself. That night, I realized something important. The wedding didn't just change my relationship with my sister. It changed how I saw myself. I no longer waited to be included. I included myself. The pain taught me where I stood. The growth showed me where I belonged. And that place was built on self-respect, not permission. One evening, my sister invited me to walk with her. No agenda, no request, just a walk. We talked about small things at first. Weather, work, life. Then she stopped and said she still felt shame about the wedding. I told her shame doesn't fix the past. Change behavior does. She nodded. She asked how I forgave her. I told her I didn't forgive all at once. I forgave in pieces. Every time she respected a boundary, every time she told the truth, every time she chose differently. That surprised her. I realized forgiveness isn't a gift you hand over. It's something that grows when safety grows. We kept walking. I felt no anger. No need to defend myself. Just clarity. Later at home, I thought about how far we'd come. Not just together, but individually. She learned to let go of control. I learned to hold my ground. Those lessons stayed with me. The story no longer needed drama to feel complete. It had meaning, and meaning lasts longer than pain. Time continued doing what it does best. It softened edges. My parents became more present. They asked questions before assuming. They listened without rushing to fix things. That change mattered. At a family gathering, someone new joined us. They didn't know the past, they saw us as we were now. That felt strange, but good. I noticed how calm I felt in the room. No tight chest, no scanning for exits. I belonged because I chose to be there. Later, my sister pulled me aside and thanked me for not giving up on her. I told her I didn't stay for her. I stayed for myself. She understood. At work, I was offered a chance to speak publicly about leadership and boundaries. I accepted. I spoke honestly but simply. People connected to it. Afterward, someone told me my words helped them stand up for themselves. That stayed with me. I realized the impact of pain doesn't end where it starts. It spreads, sometimes in good ways. The wedding hurt me deeply. But what came from it helped others. That didn't justify the pain, but it gave it purpose. As years passed, the story became quieter. No big talks, no dramatic moments, just consistency. My sister and I checked in when needed. We celebrated milestones without pressure. We respected limits without resentment. One day she asked if I wanted to help plan a future family event. I considered it carefully, then agreed on clear terms. She respected them. That told me everything. At work, I continued growing. I trusted my voice, I trusted my instincts. I didn't doubt my place. I stopped fearing exclusion because I no longer measured my worth by it. One afternoon, I looked at a photo from the anniversary shoot. I noticed something new. I wasn't smiling nervously. I was relaxed. That mattered. I realized healing doesn't erase scars, it teaches you how to live without reopening them. The wedding no longer defined me. My response to it did. I chose honesty over silence. I chose boundaries over comfort. I chose myself. That choice shaped everything that followed. Looking back, I see the full picture clearly now. The wedding was never just about photos. It was about control, fear, and silence. Being banned from those photos hurt me deeply, but it also pushed me to grow in ways comfort never could. Years later, when my sister asked for a favor, I didn't rush to help. I asked for truth first. That changed everything. I learned that love without respect is not love. I learned that silence is not peace. I learned that choosing yourself does not make you selfish, it makes you free. My sister faced the truth, my parents learned to listen, and I learned to stand tall without waiting for approval. The story didn't end with revenge, it ended with balance. And balance is stronger than anger. The hallway, the camera, the silence, they no longer haunt me. They remind me how far I've come. And that is enough. The years after everything settled felt steady in a way I once thought was impossible. Life no longer felt like something I had to brace for. I woke up without tightness in my chest. I walked into rooms without scanning faces. My sister and I spoke when it mattered. We didn't force closeness. We didn't pretend. That honesty made things easier. One day, she invited me to help her choose photos for a family album update. I noticed she waited for my answer instead of assuming it. That small pause showed growth. We sat together and looked through pictures from different years. Some made us laugh. Some felt heavy. When we reached the wedding section, she stopped. "I don't want to hide it anymore," she said. She placed a note beside the page, explaining the absence honestly. No excuses. No blame. I didn't expect that. My throat tightened, but I stayed calm. That moment felt like a full circle. Not because the past was fixed, but because it was no longer denied. Later, alone, I realized I no longer needed moments like this to feel whole. They were meaningful, but not required. I had built a life rooted in respect, and respect once learned doesn't disappear. At work, I continued leading with confidence. I trusted my judgment and encouraged others to trust theirs. I noticed how often people shrink when they feel unseen. I didn't let that happen around me. One afternoon, a coworker thanked me for listening when no one else did. I smiled and said, "Listening is easy when you remember how silence feels." That truth came from experience. At home, I reflected more often on the past, not with pain, but with understanding. I saw my younger self clearly now. I saw how brave she was, even when she didn't feel strong. My sister sent me a message one evening. She said she was proud of me, not for my success, but for my honesty. That mattered. I realized pride means more when it comes without conditions. We weren't perfect. We still made mistakes. But we repaired them instead of ignoring them. That's how trust grows. The wedding memory still existed, but it no longer controlled my emotions. It became part of a larger story, not the center of it. I learned that healing doesn't erase what happened. It changes how much power it holds. And mine no longer held power over me. As time passed, new people entered my life who knew nothing about the wedding or the pain. They met me as I was, confident and steady. That felt freeing. One weekend, my sister and I attended a family event together. I noticed something small but important. She stood beside me, not in front of me. When someone asked about the past, she answered honestly. She didn't look to me for permission, but she respected my presence. I appreciated that. Later, she told me she no longer felt the need to compete. She said she finally understood that love isn't limited. I told her I was glad she learned that. That night, I thought about how far we both came. Growth doesn't always come from comfort. Sometimes it comes from loss. The loss of control, the loss of illusions. I didn't wish the pain away anymore. It shaped me. I became someone who values truth over image, peace over silence, respect over approval. Those values guided my choices now. When I looked ahead, I felt calm. I wasn't afraid of being excluded. I knew who I was. And that knowledge stayed with me, no matter where I stood or who stood beside me. One quiet afternoon, I found the dress I wore to the wedding. I hadn't looked at it in years. I held it gently, remembering how hopeful I felt that day. I didn't feel sad. I felt grateful. That version of me survived something painful and learned to grow without turning bitter. That mattered. I folded the dress and placed it away, not as something to forget, but as something to honor. My sister and I spoke later that week. She said she sometimes wishes she could redo the wedding. I told her, life doesn't give do-overs, but it gives chances. She understood. I realized forgiveness isn't about pretending something didn't hurt. It's about choosing not to let it define you. The story of my life didn't stop in that hallway. It kept moving. I built strength from discomfort, confidence from truth, peace from boundaries. Those things stay with you. As I looked toward the future, I felt ready for whatever came next. I trusted myself, and that trust was the greatest gift I gained from everything that happened. Looking back now, I understand the full meaning of my story. My older sister banned me from her wedding photos, and it broke my heart. It showed me how easily people can choose image over love. Years later, she asked me for a favor. That moment gave me a choice. I could stay silent again, or I could ask for truth. I chose truth. That choice changed everything. It didn't lead to revenge. It didn't lead to perfect happiness. It led to balance. I learned that respect matters more than inclusion. That boundaries are not walls, but guides. That silence is not peace. I no longer wait for permission to belong. I belong because I choose myself. My sister grew, my parents learned, and I found my voice. The wedding photos still exist, but they no longer define me. What defines me is how I stood up when it mattered. This story isn't about punishment, it's about self-respect. And that is something no one can take away. Not then, not ever.